Welcome to Market Pulse Pros and Pioneers. Each week, I talk with industry leaders on both marketing and entrepreneurship and business to find out all about their wins and failures in marketing right now. We'll hear all about successes and wins and what's fallen flat so that you can take that knowledge and implement it. Learn from the best, from the folks who've been there and done it all, as well as people just like you. Thanks for joining us. This is Market Pulse Pros and Pioneers.
Good afternoon and welcome back to Market Pulse Pros and Pioneers. Season 2 has kicked off with an absolute blast. We've had some fantastic people on the show and this week is no exception. Ladies and gentlemen who are watching along, you watch the show for a long time. I've already been on this lady's podcast and I thoroughly enjoyed the experience, so much so that I had to bring her back and invite her onto ours. Please, if you haven't met her before, welcome Dorien Morin Van Dam onto our show. I've been practicing how to say your name. I'm sorry, I need to get that right. It makes me so anxious when I get people with a name that it sounds very different to how it's spelt. But lovely to have you on the show, Dorien.
Thanks for having me. I always love talking, so this is going to be great.
And that's a Dutch name, right?
Yes, it is. I was born and raised in the Netherlands, and then I immigrated to the US when I was 18.
Wow, that must have been some upheaval, because I imagine at 18-year-old, you've got all your friends there and you're
It was just an adventure. It was an adventure. I was supposed to go for a year and, the age-old story, meeting somebody, falling in love and staying. And, I've been in this country for years. So, yeah, it's been a long time. So I've spent more time in the US than I grew up in the Netherlands and spent time there. But I am 100% Dutch. So that always will stick with, that sticks with you no matter what.
And so season 2 for this show has focused much more around people's stories and how they got where they are, because the more I've recorded this podcast, the more I've realized that nobody got here on purpose. Very, very few people I spoke to saw in advance any of their journey that they've been on. And I love that almost serendipity and fate-led journey that people have been on, because that's what makes us unique and that's what gives us our unique selling point. So walk me through where that journey to America went then, Dorien, because that's an opportunity to reinvent yourself, right? At 18-year-old, you could be whatever you want.
Yeah, except I didn't really, I only had one goal, is to just be happy, which is a silly goal, but growing up in a very strict Dutch Reformed household with the role model of becoming a mom. And so when I met somebody and fell in love, that really was what I was going to do. But because we were so young and so poor, we waited to have children. We had that luxury. And so I worked for 7 years as a nanny before we even had our first child. Ended up, we have 4 children. They're all young adults now. Youngest is 20, the oldest is 28. Lovely family. But at age 40, I walked my youngest into kindergarten. And it was one of those days that everybody, the moms are crying, they're standing there. And I literally walked out of there with the biggest smile on my face, because that was my 4th one going to school. I had been nannying for 20 something years, nannying and parenting. And this was the first time in, I think, 22 years that I had a day without a child, like a weekday. And I had from 7:30 to 2:30. And I was like, what am I going to do with my time? And this was 2010. So think about what was happening. Facebook was up and coming. Twitter was up and coming. Nobody locally where I lived was doing social media. They were talking about it. Businesses weren't doing it. Nobody had time for it. Nobody knew what it was. And so I was contemplating going to school. Here I am at 40, going to get an education that I never had. And then we kind of did the math, my husband and I. Like, if I go to school for 4 years, by the time I'm done, our first child is almost ready to go to college himself. How much earning power do I have? We kind of did some of that math. And then I was like, well, what can I do? And I didn't want to go work for somebody and have to go into an office. So my husband he has his own business, been working for himself remotely for at least 10 years at that point, remote already. This was 2010. So he's like, well, what if you do social media and, start working locally, but maybe you can do some remote work like me. So I took an online course, and I am a very different learner than he is. So within 3 weeks of taking the course, I literally got a room at a local university, put up a sign and said, I'm teaching social media to people. I got a bunch of business owners to come. I'm teaching what I'm learning 3 weeks before. I'm teaching that to them. And my husband's looking at me going, what are you doing? I'm like, well, I'm learning now. I'm implementing. This is how I learn, by doing. So I'm going to get everybody together. I had to be at the university. So we had good Wi-Fi. And I started teaching. I created a network called Hands-On Networking in the area what I was in, connecting business owners and saying, when we meet in person, now we can connect online. We can boost each other's online presence. This was 2010, and started working with local businesses. And that's really how I got started. I think I didn't know what I didn't know. So that's the biggest thing that I had an advantage for. I didn't know how to behave in business. I'd never been in business, never
Yep.
worked in business. I've been, remember, a nanny, stay-at-home mom, and I didn't know that, how to dress or how to act. I just was me. And I think that worked to my advantage for sure. There were no expectations that I had to live up to. And so I kind of carved my own way. And especially since social media was new, I was the first social media manager in the local area. So I got a lot of referrals. And one of the ways I got started is that I kind of raised my hand on LinkedIn and said, hey, anybody need any help? And there was a local charity that was doing a golf tournament, and they were making about
Yep.
$5,000 a year in fundraising. And I said, well, I can help. And they go, well, we can't pay you. And I said, well, if you give me a title, I will do it for free. So they made me social
Yep.
media director for 3 years for their
Amazing.
tournament. And the third year, we raised $75,000. And we can attribute that to social media and the spread of social media and sponsorship and being able to tag people and be able to get the word out. So that was really my start by, working with that charity and then getting known locally. So that was really the golden age of social media, the really the start, that
From the
gold
outset.
rush, if
Mhm.
you call it.
Yep. Yep. My son struggles to believe that I predate the internet. I must seem incredibly old to him. But I remember going into college and things just to download things to bring home on floppy disks because I
Yep.
didn't have internet at home. It's unbelievable the differences that we've seen in such a relatively short period of time.
Sure.
But why social media then, I guess? What attracted you to social media?
Well, the funniest part was I wasn't attracted to social media. I actually didn't have a Facebook presence until my husband said, check out social media. So I went on Twitter, I went on Facebook, and I started checking it out. I like in-person meetings. So it just
Mhm.
happened to be the thing that I could go into without a lot of training. And
Yep.
I do like communicating. Raising kids and raising teenagers, you have to be over communicative to make sure you get the point across. And so I'd also, in all those years as a stay-at-home mom, I have been on all kinds of committees. I had learned to navigate difficult situations, empathy. I was on the PTO, PTA. I was an elder at my church. There were a lot of decisions that were made, a lot of committees I was on, a lot of projects I was involved with that helped set me up for what social media ended up doing. First it's online networking, it's building community, which I had done immediately. I moved to an area in 2000. We lived in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. That's where we moved to. When we had 2 young children, I was pregnant with my third. Now, my husband's not from South Carolina. My family's in Europe. I moved there 5 months pregnant, and my biggest goal was the next 4 months to get to know somebody well enough that I could stash my 2 kids with them while I went into labor so my husband could be with me. That literally was my goal. So I networked the heck out of myself to meet other moms. I was part of the moms club. I ended up being the president of the local
Yep.
moms club, but I made real connections everywhere. And that understanding of how people work and that people needed to be part of community has really helped me in social media. I think as we now are in 2025, there is that debate that comes back, every year about, do we need skills or do you need hard skills or soft skills? Do we need to have somebody who understands the algorithm of TikTok, or do we need somebody who understands the algorithm of people, right? Do we want
Yep.
somebody that has empathy, or do we want to know the data behind everything? And the truth is we need both, and we need them to work together. But starting out, 15 years ago, it really was about understanding psychology and people and communication. And, data came a lot later to, be successful. So a lot of younger people who can probably do great growing a TikTok account or, any kind of social media account, they might not understand customer service piece of social media. And so that's where I've really found, that's why I went into organic social instead of ads, because I
Yeah.
really love that part, the customer service,
Yeah.
the retention piece.
Yeah. I agree. And it's something that's always been core to my principles as well, is that kind of, I always said to my wife many years ago before I even left retail, we'd get handymen out to do jobs around the house, or we'd phone them up and we'd ask them to do something, even just come out and do a quote. And probably 4 out of 5 just wouldn't even bother to turn up for the quote. And I
Mm.
always said, making money out of people is really, really easy. And she said, well, what do you mean, Paul? How can that be? I said, well, it's very simple, right? All you've got to do is tell someone what you're going to do, tell someone how much it'll be, tell them when you'll be there, and tell them how you'll do it. And then do those 4 things. That's it. And if you can do those 4 things, you will win hearts and minds, because the vast majority of people can't.
Don't.
Um,
Yeah.
It's just be reliable and consistent. I think that's, but yes, that customer service piece is huge. And I think a lot of people miss that ability to engage in genuine conversations, not money-led conversations, and just see where the relationship builds to. Which brings me on to kind of storytelling, which I know is a huge part of the way you work with your clients and what you're all about on social media. So where did you start to see the importance of storytelling in your own business, in your own life? Is that how you managed to become successful?
Yeah. So, if you read my bio, you see I wear my orange glasses as a nod to my Dutch heritage. That actually kind of happened by accident. The first year I was in business, somebody sent me a cardboard pair of orange glasses with a little crown on it. The Netherlands had at that time a queen, and Queen's
Yeah.
Day is in April. And so it was Queen's Day. I was missing the Netherlands. She sent me those glasses and I put them on. And when I put that picture as my profile picture, this was the start of my business. And I would go into town and go to my hands-on networking meetings and my other networking meetings, and people would go, "Oh, you're the girl of the orange glasses." And
Yeah.
so that piece of recognition, that's what I was known for initially, not what I did, but by my look. So I very quickly realized that, and I started buying orange glasses just over the counter, no prescription. And I wore orange glasses for 10 years without a prescription because it helped me
Uh-huh.
be recognized sort of as a logo. I then incorporate
Yeah.
logo, orange in my logo and all of that stuff. But that's kind of where that starts. But that's when I realized people like a story. People like to know something about you so they can remember you. The other story I often tell, and these are people that I network with, and now that you're part of my network, you'll hear the story too, but I share it every year on May 5th, is that my husband and I met at a bus stop and then got married at the bus stop only 7 months later. And so it's part of my story, but it's also part of how I am as a person. This defines, if it feels good, it is good. I
Yeah.
we don't need the big budget or the big bells and whistles, right? And this is
Yeah.
a metaphor for marketing. What you need is what comes after, right? I wasn't worried about the big wedding. We had a very small wedding at the bus stop with 40 of our friends and a bunch of people who got off the bus. But it's not about the wedding, it's about the marriage. What do you do afterwards, right? So
Yeah.
it's not about getting this flashy ad up or this one campaign. It's about how you conduct yourself online at all times and how you tell that story of your mission, your vision. If you're, a sustainable company, what you stand for, the things that you're willing to do and not do as a business owner, right? Your morals, all of
Yeah.
that stuff, that's all part of your story. And telling that is really, really powerful because not everybody is your audience. I love in the beginning of when I started doing social media, didn't know what questions to ask. So I would say, who's your audience? And people say, oh, everybody. And I'm like, oh, we can work with that. No, you can't work with that. Who is your audience? Who is your ideal
Yeah.
audience? Who do you want to target? Who pays you the most or who pays you the most often or who comes back every year? Like those are your most profitable ones. Who has
Yeah.
stuck with you the longest? So those are the people we need to target. And that storytelling to them to get them in. But you have to show a little bit of yourself. You have to be human, right? And have those human feelings. And that's kind of where that storytelling started. When I realized that people recognized me in person from something they had seen online. The same thing happened the first time I went to a big conference. I didn't know anybody. I flew from South Carolina to San Diego. I'm in this huge place with like 3,000 people. And this girl comes running to me and goes, "Oh my gosh, Doreen." I did not know who she was, but she knew me from Twitter because I was wearing my orange glasses. So that connection between the online world and the in-person world is really important. And I think that if you and I were to meet Paul in real life, we'd feel the same way because this is an authentic connection that we're making. And I think that is something, that storytelling, that piece is missing from a lot of people's marketing. And that's what I want to give to
Yeah.
people, right? Story and share it with the world.
And a lot of people are kind of a little bit afraid of telling their story because they want to remain, they want to be humble, and they don't feel as though their story is what's going to make the sale. And they really struggle. I think, most business owners probably have to tell their story 500 times before they're anywhere near like a starting point for their story. It evolves over time, right? Like what advice would you give to a business that's out there that maybe they're relatively new and trying to find their story, whatever that looks like for them?
So one of the things that I recently kind of started adapting and help telling people about, it's not about creating content, it's about documenting this the documenting the journey. So when you're a founder, I'm working with a brand new startup right now, and they're going to their first conference this week, right? So we're in a all team meeting, and they're like, "Yeah, we don't necessarily, want to be in the picture because we're a startup." And I'm like, "Well, can you do pictures of the people who have the booth next to you? Can you tell the story about your travel? You don't necessarily have to show your face, but we're on a plane, or your product is on the plane, or you know." You can have different angles, but sharing the journey, document what you're doing, document your meeting, this meeting. Let's take a picture. Even if we don't post it now, maybe we post it in a year, right? Then we have the Wayback Machine, but document everything because that makes you realize all the stuff that you're doing. So instead of thinking, "Oh, I got to create content," no, you're documenting your day, your week, your meetings, your successes, your failures. And I think
Yeah.
once you start thinking about it like that it's a piece of history for your company, then it starts making sense. And then you don't have to think about how to post it on social. Then you give it to your social person. If you document everything as a business owner, as as the C-suite team, your social media team can do all kinds of magic with that. But you start documenting that.
It's funny. I was literally having this conversation about an hour and a half ago with someone, and the question to me, and I'm going to get your answer first on this, and I know what it is already. I already have it figured. But what he said to me was, "I don't want to be famous, Paul. So I really want to get on video, and I'm happy to do it for the business. But do you think I have anything to add? And is it going to add anything to the business if I get on video?" And I know you're a big believer in video as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing what you say on this. But
It shows your passion. If you're on video, you're getting me to talk about everything that I love. If you're watching this, you can see that I'm excited about social media. You can see that I'm excited about my business, and I'm excited about video. I'm excited about helping small business owners. That's why I'm on video, because I can convey that in a written story on LinkedIn. It's my facial expressions, is my enthusiasm, is the tone of my voice, it's my rattling off all the great stuff that's happening in my business. When you're a founder, when you're a C-suite, there's a reason you either got hired or you started the company or you're making decisions. Share those reasons, share what's happening. That's what people want to know. Businesses are going to do business with if they know the people behind a business, right?
yeah,
B2B, it's business to business, but it's really still, as we always say, H to H, it's human to human. There's two people signing on the dotted line when they
yeah,
make a contract. Don't forget. And people have a lot of choices, right? If I
yeah,
needed to go find a new tool to live stream, there's probably 10 choices out there. Who am I going to sign with? It's first of all, I'm going to go to all my friends and ask them, what are you using? Then I'm going to go online and look at reviews. Next, I'm going to go to forums and see what people say. And maybe fourth, I'm going to try to do a demo and see what the people that work there, how they respond to me. And then I'll make a decision. But ultimately, I do want to know who's behind that tool, because if something goes wrong, I want to know who's there. So yes, B2B, you still want to be shown. And then founders have incredible insight. There's always a passion why they started a business. Very rarely to start a business they go, oh, I can make $10 million. That's why I'm starting a business. No, they're solving a problem. Most businesses are created because they're solving a problem. What problem are you solving, and how are you making people's lives better? Talk about that. And when you do that on video, that sells it for you. You don't need to do anything else. And if you're listening to this and you're a founder, you're C-suite, and you haven't done video, think about this. Your videos, especially on LinkedIn, are going to amplify what your team is doing on LinkedIn pages. It's going to amplify all their hard work on TikTok, on Instagram, everywhere else, because now they see you and they can use your content to amplify the whole business voice. And so, yeah, I don't see any reason not to do it. It's not going to make you famous. It's going to make you human, recognizable. That's it.
Special shout out in today's episode for our charity partners, ADHD Liberty, led by Sarah Templeton, who are part of the fight to prevent the school to prison pipeline for ADHD and neurodiverse individuals. If you'd like to find out more, you can visit them. The show links are in the notes below, and I would encourage you to go along and have a look and educate yourself on their fight. It's an incredibly important cause, and we're super proud to have them as charity partners for the Market Pulse Frozen Pioneers podcast. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your episode.
Almost word for word. I love it. Almost exact same conversation I had with him. The thing I'd caveat all that with as well is, especially for businesses that are in a crowded space, when your ideal target audience gets to a point where they're about to make a decision and they've got you versus somebody who offers pretty much what you offer, rather than get into a race to the bottom on services and price and all those sort of things, if the person on the other end knows a little bit about you and they believe in you and what you stand for as a person and as a business, then they'll actually be willing to pay more for that than even just pay the same or less. So instead of then diving into that race to the bottom, start putting yourself in that race to the top and put your hand up. So I can't recommend that enough. I love that. Thank you very much for sharing that, Dorien. Coming back to your journey then, I love the fact that you bring agile marketing into the fold. And that's something I don't hear anybody else talking about, agile marketing. Like, it's marketing or it's not marketing. So do you want to walk us through where that came from and how you work with that?
Sure. In 2018, I signed a consulting contract with a team that was an agile team, and they are business coaches, and they go into businesses, large corporations, and they do facilitation. They teach agility, communication, and I really enjoyed working for them. And about a year and a half in, I got this email from the founder of that company, and she kind of slid it in an email. And she goes, you can use agile for marketing, right? And was like, what? And so she sends me a link to an agile marketing workshop. And it's the first time in 9 years I've been in business, is 2020, early 2020. So 10 years in business. First time I was like, sign me up. I don't care how much it costs. It was a 2-day conference in a workshop in New York City. Now, this was March 12th of 2020. So you know what happened? I'm in the city and the city is shutting down. I finish this workshop. I get on the train. I don't have a mask. I'm like, I don't even have hand sanitizer. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I just want to get home. I live in Vermont, 5-hour train ride. I get home and the world shut down. That was it. Well, now I had learned agile marketing. It's all about iterations, right? You create something, you get feedback. You create something better, feedback, the feedback loops. And I'm sitting there at home and I'm like, how can I implement this as a team of one? Because if you know anything about agility and agile, it came from the software development area and it's used in teams. So they do sprints together, they work together. Well, everybody in that workshop was part of a corporation. So they were doing agile marketing as a marketing team. Dorien is a team of one. So I kept asking during the workshop, well, how does this apply to me? How does this apply to me? I kept asking and pushing the envelope, and there really wasn't an answer. So once we were all shut in, I started implementing some of those things. And within 3 months, I gained back, and I'm not lying, about 15 hours a week of time that now was mine, because I was doing things. I was meeting with my clients more, but I was doing a lot less work. Let me say that again. I was meeting more, but I was doing less work, because instead of working on something for 3 hours, presenting it to them and then saying, well, I don't like this, I had to start back over. I would say, here are 3 concepts, A, B, or C. Which one do you like? I'd send them an email. They go A. So I take A and do version A, 1, 2, 3. Send them it back an hour later. I just need you to take a quick look. 1, 2, or 3. And they'd go 3. I go, okay, A3. And I was so much faster, and I was doing a much better job of getting my clients what they wanted. I did that, for implementation of working together, right? I started using Google Drive. Now you can work asynchronously with your clients, which I absolutely love. If you're a freelancer, entrepreneur, you're listening to this, I do a lot of my content I created in Google Docs. I upload the images in there. I make it look like, hey, this is, I'm creating content. This is what the post's going to look like. But they can go work in there. I have a client who has 2 small children who nap in the afternoon. So on Saturdays, when she's not working in her law firm, she'll go and approve content while they nap. But I'm not working on Saturday, but she can be, because we can work together. On Monday, when I open my email, there's her comments. Now I can get the content done. So that's all part of the agility piece, where you can work alongside each other, but get that feedback. More feedback is better. And then at the end of every project, at the end of every month, we do this retrospective of what worked really well. And next time we have a project, what can we do to improve? And then, another part of agility is when you do have a team, have these daily stand-ups. Well, I started doing daily stand-ups with myself, because here's the honest truth. Don't we all have something that we just dread doing and then push it off, push it off, push it off? Well, when you say every day, when you answer every day, these 3 questions: what did I accomplish yesterday? What am I planning to do today? And where am I stuck? And 3 days in a row, you're stuck on, I don't want to send this email, or you're stuck on, I don't want to confront my client. You know where your bottleneck is. So that freed up a lot of time, because I started doing eat the frog, right? Do the thing that you don't want to do first thing in the morning after my stand up. And that freed up my mind, freed up my psyche. I was like, okay, I'm relieved. I feel better. So just doing that daily thing. What did I accomplish yesterday? Pat myself on the back. What am I working on today? Make 3 big goals and a couple of small goals. And where am I stuck? The piece that I'm stuck first, or get somebody to come in to help. That opened up my week. It just got things moving. I wouldn't sit there for 3 hours scrolling, because I was trying to avoid, sending this email or this invoice or make this phone call. And so adapting that agility in marketing and that mindset helped me scale, because what it allowed me to do is take on more clients, take on bigger clients. And so that was 2020. That was the first year I made 6 figures. And from there on, it went. So it really kind of was a big pivotal moment. But looking back at it, why it worked for me, I think it's a lot of, if you know anybody Dutch, if you're watching, listening, if you know anybody Dutch, you know that we're very pragmatic, and it just made sense. This is how I was raised, right? You get feedback all the time. Little kids in the Netherlands, everybody learned how to tie their shoes when they're in kindergarten. Everybody gets their swimming diploma when they're age 6 or 7. Everybody does stuff at the same time, but you get this feedback loop. Hey, you're not ready for this, or you're ready for this. And so learning that growing up, it made a lot of sense. We were ready a lot earlier than I think my American peers, because we would get feedback on stuff. No, you can't do that. Yeah, you can do that. And so we were given more privilege earlier on, because we were doing a good job. And so I think my Dutch part of my brain and my being recognized that was a piece that was missing in my business. And that's why that's worked out really, really well for me. But anybody that's interested, you don't have to be Dutch to implement agile in your marketing, but it's fantastic. I absolutely love it. And there's, I kind of picked and chose elements because I'm a team of one. It looks very different for me than it looks for other people, but you can still practice agility in your own business, even if you're a small team.
Amazing. Dorien, it's rare that I laugh this much during a podcast episode, and we're so aligned on so many things. It's brilliant. We could, as you said before the show, we could easily go on for 9 or 10 hours together. I think definitely. No, I don't think anybody wants to watch that, but we definitely could. So if people have been watching along, listening along, and they want to find out a bit more about yourself or about the business, or maybe they need some help or advice, what's the best way for them to contact you?
I'm on LinkedIn. My handle is Morin Media. I'm on LinkedIn. That's YouTube. I would say YouTube as well. But just connect with me on LinkedIn and send me a message and say, hey, I listened to the podcast with Paul and want to connect with you. I love meeting new people. I love growing my network. That's how you and I met, Paul, right there on LinkedIn. And so, that's the best place. If I have to define what I do, I'm a social media strategist and a content marketer. So I help founders and business owners and professionals, help them with their social media that they either are stuck or they can't move forward because they're not sure, like you said, have that imposter syndrome. People sure they want to hear from me. And I basically get what's in your head. I get it out on social media.
Love it. Thank you very much for your time today. Pleasure having you along as a guest.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us for today's show. I hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to feature on a future show, or you've got some ideas for folks who would make a great guest, please drop us a line. Contact details are in the show notes, and I'd love to hear from you. Your host today was me, Paul Banks, founder at Javelin Content Management. Here at Javelin, we specialise in helping busy business owners just like you to repurpose video content, taking all the stress and tech problems away and turning your long-form video into literally hundreds of pieces of content without breaking the bank. We describe it as getting ideas out of your head into video and out to your socials. If you want to launch your personal brand, become the vendor of choice for your audience, or maximise your sales revenue impact, we'd love to hear from you. Join us next Wednesday for the next episode, and don't forget to subscribe and give us a review. Our podcast is only possible with your continued support.